This story starts with a Sopranos fanfic. Synopsis. Tony Soprano is used to being weather. Artie Bucco is used to swallowing truth. Christopher Moltisanti is used to mistaking insecurity for manhood. And Saul Zaylhel has a mouth sharp enough to make all three notice him before he is ready. This is not a story about instantly conquering the mob. This is the story of a young man dropped into enemy territory and forced to build power from the ground up. $1, 1 rep, 1 document, 1 insult, 1 useful contact, and 1 dangerous first impression at a time. Warning: this is mature fiction. There will be violence, sex scenes, racial slurs, homophobic slurs, ableist insults, ugly language, and characters with ugly beliefs. This is not porn. Sex exists in the story, but it is not the driver of the story. The main character is dominant, combative, religious, arrogant, politically incorrect, and not designed to be safe or soft. If you need a socially acceptable hero who says the right thing every time, this story is not for you. Also, if you want instant power fantasy, this is not that either. At first it's a steady build, then by chapter 8 things pick up. Everything up until chapter 16 takes place before the original Sopranos pilot. If you are still here, good. Welcome to Saul Zaylhel's first mistake. Leave a like, comment your thoughts, and enjoy. 1 Chapter 1. The Wrong Year, Right War. The quiet had weight. His old room had never been this cleanly silent. Even at night, the modern world kept muttering through walls and wires. Traffic, neighbors, televisions, chargers, routers, appliances, engines, the small electric noise of a century that hated shutting up. Here, the silence had gaps in it. The first gap reached his hand before his mind named it. His phone. His hand moved across the sheet. Mattress. Empty nightstand. Nothing. His eyes opened. The ceiling was white. Old white. Yellowed near the corners. A ceiling fan turned overhead with a slow, uneven click. Saul stayed still. That was the first decision. Do not jolt. Panic gave the world too much information. He let the body report first. Dry mouth. Stiff back. Heavy shoulders. Elevated heart. Legs present. Hands present. Same size. Same weight. Same unfinished frame. He flexed his right hand under the sheet. Big palm. Strong fingers. Less strong than they needed to become. Good. Whatever had moved him had not moved him into weakness. Saul sat up slowly. The room was not his. Modest condo bedroom. Low dresser. Beige carpet. Blinds over a window. Wooden nightstand with a lamp, a wallet, a folded newspaper, and a cheap alarm clock with red digital numbers.
7:14 a.m.
The numbers glowed without explanation. Just time.
Bare time.
Primitive and rude. Saul looked at the clock. Then the newspaper. Then the wallet. His jaw tightened. That, he said to the empty room, is already disrespectful. His voice sounded the same. Deep enough to carry. Young enough to still have the edge of unfinished adulthood. A 19-year-old voice deciding, sentence by sentence, whether it wanted to become a command or a threat. Good. At least whatever had happened had not stolen his mouth. He reached for the newspaper. The Star Ledger. The paper rasped against his fingers. Information with ink on it. Information that arrived late and expected gratitude. The date sat at the top. June 17, 1998. Saul stared. The fan clicked. The alarm clock held its numbers. The room kept its shape. For a moment, every explanation tried to enter at once. Dream. Psychosis. Death. Demon. God. Punishment. Opportunity. His fingers tightened around the paper until the edge bent. Then the thoughts began arranging themselves because that was what his mind did when reality became hostile. First, he was awake. Pain was present. Thirst was present. The room had too much ugly detail for dream softness. The clock ticked. The paper had texture. His mouth tasted stale. Second, his memories were intact. Oakland. His family. His faith. His goals. Project Zenkai. Wait. breath, posture, strength, discipline. Owned, contested, rejected. Build the body before asking it to perform myth. Third, the phone was gone. That mattered more than comfort. His maps, search, messages, modern banking, notes, scripture access, instant argument, instant research, all gone with one missing rectangle of glass. Fourth, the date and location were active facts. 1998. North New Jersey. Those words touched fragments in his head. Tony Soprano. The name arrived with a face. Heavy breathing. Expensive shirts. Men laughing too hard in warm rooms. Therapy clips. A restaurant that meant more than food. Vesuvio. Artie. A wife. A nephew. A daughter's name somewhere in the noise. His old world had fed him pieces. Twitter clips, arguments, memes, scenes cut out of order by people who treated chronology like an optional feature. Enough to recognize faces and sounds. Enough to know danger might have a name. He had not studied it. That mattered. A fool would call fragments prophecy and walk into the wrong room smiling. The show itself should not be public yet. If this was what his mind thought it was, the people here were alive before the audience. Unwarned. Unquoted. Dangerous without knowing they would become entertainment. Maybe 1998 North Jersey meant nothing. Maybe stress had attached a famous name to a strange room. Maybe hell had lazy set design. No conclusion yet. Only a working suspicion. He needed names. Addresses. Restaurants. Waste companies. Phone books. Local papers. Proof. If Vesuvio existed, the suspicion strengthened. If Artie Bucco existed, it sharpened. If Tony Soprano existed, it became a problem. Saul set the newspaper beside the wallet.
7:18 a.m.
For minutes gone. Acceptable. He opened the wallet. New Jersey identification. His face. His name. A few $100s in cash. A debit card from a bank that existed here. A folded slip with an address. Keys. No letter. No manual. No glowing system. No celestial clerk apologizing for the inconvenience. Saul looked upward. If this is a test, he said, you could have included instructions. The room gave him the dignity of silence. He stood. The weight came with him. Around 270 pounds. 6'2". Large frame, too much softness. Real strength buried under neglect and potential. His knees accepted the load. His feet found the carpet. Same body. That helped. He checked the condo. Living room. Small kitchen. Old television. Landline. Couch. Dishes. Refrigerator with eggs. Milk. Bread. Cold cuts. Orange juice. Condiments. And a smell that suggested at least one previous tenant had believed expiration dates were opinions. A small table held a notebook, pens, and a local map. That stopped him. He picked up the notebook. Blank. Useful. He sat at the kitchen table and wrote the date. June 17, 1998. Under it, New Jersey log. Then, condition. Displaced. Explanation unknown. Treat environment as real until disproven. He paused. The sentence looked ridiculous. A 19-year-old Orthodox Christian from Oakland dropped into 1998 New Jersey with no phone, no allies, no verified timeline, and possible proximity to a mob world he knew only through clips, starting a log at a kitchen table. Ridiculous did not mean optional. He wrote, body, same, approximate, 270 pounds, large frame, deconditioned, high potential, untrained, immediate assets, ID, address, keys, cash, debit card, shelter, notebook, map, known losses, phone, internet, modern search, modern banking convenience, instant maps, working suspicion, possible Sopranos setting, verify through directories, papers, locations, names. Do not trust clip memory. Primary rule. Do not become dependent. That line held. He added, avoid debt/favor channels. Confirm before acting. Public rooms before private rooms. Enough. The notebook did not need a speech. He drank water, cooked the eggs in the refrigerator, and ate enough to stop hunger from interfering with judgment. Then he dressed in jeans, a plain shirt, and shoes that fit. The hallway outside smelled like old carpet and someone else's breakfast. He locked the door and memorized the immediate ground. Door number, neighboring doors, stairwell, exit, window at the end, fire alarm. Outside, late 90s New Jersey sat under morning sun with no idea it had become Saul's problem. Cars passed with older shapes and duller paint. A woman in sunglasses walked a small dog. A radio played through an open window. The air was heavy, humid, and immediate. Saul walked. First mile, reconnaissance.
Moderate pace.
Nasal breathing.
No iro pace. No punishment pace.
The body was carrying too much payload and too little training history for pride to start giving orders. Stores. Gas station. Diner. Strip mall. Bus stop. Men outside a deli. Church sign. Payphone. Gym advertisement in a window. He stopped. The gym looked ordinary. Machines, free weights, old posters, a front desk. Men lifting with mixed relationships to form and truth. A beginning did not need to impress him. It needed to work. Inside, the man at the desk looked up from a newspaper and scanned him. Size, age, race, threat, customer, problem. Men always thought their eyes were private. How much for a membership? Saul asked. The man named the price. Saul asked about hours, equipment, showers, rules, cancellation, guest policy, trainers, and the heavy bag in the back corner. The man grew more interested after the third question. People who asked details were serious, annoying, or both. You play ball? The man asked.
No.
Football?
No.
Box? Not yet. The man smirked. Not yet. I prefer to become dangerous in the correct order. The man blinked, decided not to pursue that, and handed him a form. Saul paid for a short membership. No long contract.
No automatic payment.
A man did not tie a rope around his own ankle because the rope came with a discount. He toured the gym. Leg curl. Seated row.
Lat pull down.
Chest press. Leg press. Treadmills. Free weights. Pull-up station. Heavy bag in the back corner. Usable. He did not train yet. Yesterday did not exist here. Sleep context unknown. Food limited. Terrain still unclear. The body was not a disposable servant. Outside, he leaned against the brick wall and wrote. Gym, usable. Short membership. Free weights, machines, treadmill, bag. Return tomorrow for baseline. Then he went to the library. That hurt more than the gym. He respected books. That was not the problem. The modern part of him wanted to ask a question and watch the world kneel with sources. Instead, he had fluorescent lights, shelves, phone books, directories, periodicals, librarians, and time. Fine. Knowledge would be slower. Slower did not mean weaker. The librarian was a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and professional suspicion. She watched him as if deciding whether he was unusually polite or preparing to rob the place with vocabulary. He gave her courtesy. I need a library card, he said, and local newspapers, business directories, phone books, maps, municipal boundaries, and restaurant listings. That's a lot for a first visit. Yes. You new here? Yes. School project?
No.
Work? Soon. Her suspicion remained. Good. Suspicion was not hostility. It was a door admitting it had a lock. By noon, Saul had gathered 3 things. Local geography, local businesses, public names. The phone books mattered first. He checked restaurants. Vesuvio existed. The name sat in print like any other business, which made it worse. Real paper did not care about dramatic timing. He found the address. Then Bucco. Artie Bucco appeared where he needed to appear. Saul sat back. The suspicion sharpened. He checked waste management listings next. Soprano names appeared in the local noise, not clean enough to serve as proof by themselves, but enough to keep the line active. He moved through old papers and business mentions.
No glowing confirmation.
No page saying welcome to the Sopranos, please enjoy being stupid. That was good. The world was resisting fantasy. He wrote, Vesuvio confirmed. Artie Bucco name confirmed. Soprano references present, not sufficient. Treat setting suspicion as high probability, unverified. Under that, information rule, clip memory is lead, not evidence. Known fragments. Tony Soprano face/name. Mob association probable. Vesuvio/Artie connection likely. Therapy/family/restaurant fragments unreliable. Immediate targets. 1. Establish income. 2. Establish training base. 3. Map local institutions. Churches, banks, gyms, diners, restaurants, libraries, payphones, police station, courthouse, grocery options. 4. Avoid debt/favor channels. 5. Observe before naming enemies. He closed the notebook. That was enough for the library. The rest had to be checked by ground. By afternoon, hunger started sharpening his temper. He bought groceries. Eggs, chicken, rice, bananas, cheap vegetables, water, and multivitamins. Prices were different. Brands were different. The bags pulled at his hands on the walk back. Grip, forearms, posture, breathing. Errands could produce data if he refused to move unconsciously. At the condo, he put the food away, drank water, and wrote, loaded grocery walk. Mild grip/conditioning. Useful. Then he showered, changed, and prepared for Vesuvio. The choice was aggressive. He knew that. A cautious man would stay distant for weeks. Watch, map, build money, build body, avoid notice. That was good strategy for a man who wanted a quiet life. Saul did not want a quiet life. He also did not want to sprint at Tony Soprano like a fool with a spoiler folder. He did not have a spoiler folder. He had fragments, a working suspicion, a body that needed work, and enough sense to know recognition could kill him if he treated it as mastery. He would not run at the king. He would enter a room the king valued. A restaurant was not only a restaurant. It was access. Vesuvio looked ordinary from the outside. That annoyed him. Important places should have the decency to warn the eye. Inside, it smelled of sauce, bread, garlic, wine, money, and practiced warmth. Men and women sat under soft light pretending dinner was only dinner. Forks touched plates. Glasses moved. A waiter passed with smooth timing. Saul stood near the entrance and let the room register him. A large young black man alone in an Italian restaurant in this part of New Jersey did not become invisible by wishing. Eyes moved over him. Some slid away. Some stayed half a second too long. A hostess approached. Table for one? Yes. Reservation? No. She hesitated. Before she answered, a man came out from deeper inside the restaurant with quick, restless energy. Saul recognized him. Artie Bucco. The face matched enough. Reality added more. Friendly eyes. Worried mouth. A man performing warmth because warmth was both nature and defense. He looked like someone who could make a beautiful meal and then apologize to the knife for cutting too loudly. Everything all right? Artie asked. The hostess said, table for one, no reservation. Artie looked Saul up and down. Customer. Problem. Athlete. Bad tip. Good story. Saul offered his hand. Saul. Artie shook it automatically. Artie Bucco. I assumed. Your name is on the place. Artie laughed because people often laughed when the obvious arrived dressed as respect. You from around here? No. Figured. You got that look. What look? Artie waved vaguely. Like you're either lost or about to tell somebody else they are. Saul's smile widened. Good eye. Artie chuckled. Come on. I'll find you something. He led Saul to a small table. Not the best. Not insulting. Saul sat with his back to a wall. Artie noticed. Good. First time here? Artie asked. Yes. What made you come in? Saul looked around before answering. I like places where the owner still looks worried. Means he cares or he's in debt. Both produce effort. Artie stared, then laughed loudly enough for two nearby diners to glance over. That's one hell of a review. A fair one. You always talk like this? When I'm hungry, I'm gentler. Artie laughed again. Better. Recommendations? Artie asked. I want whatever you would serve if you were trying to prove the restaurant deserves your name on the wall. The amusement changed. Slightly. Enough. People flattered food. They flattered service. They flattered atmosphere. They did not often speak to the owner's pride directly. Artie straightened. I can do that. I assumed. Artie pointed at him. You're an odd kid. 19. That's still a kid. Biologically annoying, but not false. Artie laughed and left. Saul watched the room in clean passes. Entrance. Kitchen door. Bathroom hallway. Bar. Staff movement. Regulars. Who paid without checking the bill. Who spoke loudly because the room had trained itself to forgive him. The front door opened. The room adjusted. Small changes. Voices lowered near one table. A waiter smiled too fast. Artie turned with a familiarity too deep to be only professional and too anxious to be simple friendship. Tony Soprano walked in. Large. Heavy. Alive with appetite. Dark shirt. Open face. Warmth with teeth behind it. The man looked like he could hug you and appraise your weaknesses over your shoulder. The clip became flesh. That made him less mythic. Then more dangerous. A clip could be paused. This man could cross a room. He entered with another man Saul did not identify and said something that made Artie laugh harder than the joke deserved. There he was. Proof. Saul felt his pulse rise. He kept his face calm. Tony looked across the room and saw him. 1 second. 2. Tony's gaze carried the entitlement of a man used to rooms answering one question. Who belongs here? Saul did not glare. He held the look with mild curiosity, as if Tony were a local feature worth inspecting. Tony's eyebrows shifted. Registration. Saul took his water glass and sipped. Tony looked away first in dismissal. Temporary dismissal. Temporary was enough. Artie returned with bread and a small dish. You're in luck, Artie said. Kitchen's in a good mood. Kitchen doesn't have moods. Men do. Artie paused, then grinned. You got a line for everything? Some things deserve silence. Across the room, Tony laughed at something, loud and kingly. Saul did not look over. Artie did. There it was. The old leash. Saul picked up a piece of bread. Friend of yours? He asked. Artie turned back. Who, Tony? Yeah. We grew up together. Artie's expression sharpened. Saul tasted the bread. Good texture. I was thinking childhood friends are dangerous. Artie's smile thinned. That right. They remember who you were before you knew what needed defending. Makes it easier for them to walk into rooms you should have locked. The words landed. Too hard, maybe. But Saul had not come to be wallpaper. Artie's face tightened between offense and recognition. You don't know Tony.
No.
You don't know me either.
No.
Then that's a pretty big statement. True statements often sound rude before they become useful. For a moment, Artie looked like he might snap back. Good. A man could not be strengthened if every touch was soft. But Artie only shook his head, half annoyed and half amused despite himself. You're gonna get yourself slapped talking like that around here. By who? The question was calm. Too calm. Artie glanced toward Tony. First honest answer. Saul followed the glance. Tony was not looking at them, but he was aware. Men like Tony lived off rooms and their smallest changes. Saul turned back to Artie. If a man slaps me for making him feel measured, I learned something about the man. Artie lowered his voice. And if learning costs you teeth? Then I log it as contested. Artie stared, then laughed despite himself. What the hell does that mean? It means I survived, but my form needs work. Artie shook his head and walked off muttering about crazy customers. Saul ate. The food was good. Built by someone who cared. That mattered. It made Artie more valuable and more vulnerable. Tony passed near Saul's table on the way to the bathroom. His route was chosen. Saul kept eating. Tony slowed half a step. "You enjoying yourself?" Friendly voice. Unfriendly eyes. Saul looked up. "Yes." "Artie treating you good?" "He treats the restaurant like it matters. That covers most of it." Tony's mouth twitched. "You always talk like a book?"
No.
Tony waited. Saul took another bite, chewed, swallowed. "Sometimes I talk like the man who wrote it." Tony laughed. "Oh, listen to this guy." He looked toward the man with him. "You hear that?" The other man chuckled on command. Tony looked back. "What's your name?" "Saul." "Saul what?" Saul smiled. "Just Saul until I know who's asking." The air tightened. Artie stopped moving across the room. Tony's smile stayed, but the thing behind it lifted its head. "I'm Tony." "I know." "You know?" Artie looked at you like a man remembering debt and childhood at the same time. Tony's smile thinned. The other man stopped chuckling. Saul dabbed his mouth with the napkin. "I assumed that meant Tony." For 2 seconds, the restaurant seemed to wait. Tony stared at him. Saul held the stare. His pulse was high. His body knew the room had men who might enjoy helping Tony make a point. His hands knew he was not trained enough to treat violence like a solved equation. Fear existed. Fear did not get command. Tony smiled again. Different now. Amused. Sharpened. "You're a funny kid." That seems to be the consensus. Tony leaned closer. "Around here, funny can go a lot of ways." Saul let his face settle into something almost pleasant. "Then I'll try to be educational." Tony's eyes narrowed. Then he barked a laugh, tapped the table once with his fingers, and moved on. Artie exhaled from across the room like he had been holding breath for someone else. Saul returned to his food. His hand was steady. Good. When he finished, Artie brought the check himself. "You got a death wish?" Artie asked quietly.
No.
"Could have fooled me. If I had a death wish, I'd have asked him for a favor." Artie's face changed. That one went deep. Saul paid in cash and tipped properly. Not extravagantly. Extravagance from strangers was either insecurity or bait. Artie looked at the money, then at him. "You coming back?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because your food is good, your restaurant is important, and you're weaker than your gift deserves." Artie's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Saul stepped past him, then paused. "And because men like Tony should not be the only ones who know where the doors are." He left before Artie could answer. Outside, evening had settled into the street. Saul walked 1 block before stopping near a payphone. His heart was beating harder than he had allowed inside. He let it. Noscham. The body had sat across from danger and obeyed. That deserved record, not theater. He took out the notebook and wrote under the streetlight. "Vesuvio, real. Artie Bucco confirmed. Tony Soprano direct contact confirmed. Tony has room influence. Artie/Tony childhood connection confirmed by Artie. Next, return within 72 hours. No favors. No private meeting. Learn schedule, suppliers, debts, police visibility, neighborhood relationships. Tony Soprano, direct contact made. Avoid debt channel. Public laughter does not equal safety." The words were plain. Better that way. Car passed slowly. Saul looked up. Just a car. Maybe. He closed the notebook and started back toward the condo. The walk warmed him. First sweat, then leg heat, then rhythm. His body had complained earlier, lost the debate, and decided to contribute. He smiled in the dark. "Same replenishment," he murmured. Then louder. "Signal. Not proof." A man across the street glanced at him and hurried on. Saul kept walking. The body had given him something. That did not make it destiny. At the condo, he locked the door, checked the windows, drank water, and wrote one final entry. Day 1, position gained. Body contested. Immediate objectives. 1. Formal Phase 1 baseline tomorrow. 2. Establish income within 2 weeks. 3. Return to Vesuvio within 72 hours. 4. Build local business map. 5. Locate Orthodox Church and nearby Catholic parishes. 6. Identify banks, gyms, diners, libraries, bus routes, payphones, police station, courthouse, grocery options. 7. Avoid debt/favor channels. 8. Build before boasting. He looked at the last line. Accurate. He closed the notebook. In the dark bedroom, the fan turned overhead with its uneven click. Saul lay on his back and stared at the ceiling. He was in the wrong year, wrong state, likely the wrong world. A world where men like Tony Soprano had become room temperature. Everyone adjusted. Everyone lowered voices. Everyone learned where to stand. Saul understood fear. He had felt it tonight. That was useful. Fear reported cost. Cost could be studied. He closed his eyes. Fine. He whispered. The room did not answer. He smiled anyway. Let's begin. Chapter 2. The Forge Needs Money. Mid-morning on June 18th, Saul had divided the day into 4 headings. Body, knowledge, money, materials. The first day had been about not arriving stupid. The second day had to produce usable facts. He sat at the kitchen table with the notebook open, one hand on the page, the other on the cheap watch he had bought because the Century had taken his phone and left him with plastic humiliation. The watch worked. That was its defense. Under body, he wrote, Formal Phase 1, baseline only.
No maxing. No ego.
Under knowledge, training, anatomy, nutrition, business, materials, local directories. Under money, immediate legitimate income, cash flow before ambition. Avoid debt/favors. Under materials, clothes, shoes, red pens, scale, measuring tape, haircut, custom later. He stared at the word later. That was the first serious insult of the morning. Later meant not enough cash. Later meant the future version of himself had requirements the current version could not yet fund. Better clothes, better shoes, better grooming, better food, better tools, better information access. All of it had a price. All of it had to be sequenced. He closed the notebook. The chapter title had written itself before he earned the words. The Forge needed money. He left the condo with the notebook folded under one arm. The air outside was already humid, which Saul decided was typical of a state that wanted to be irritating before lunch. He walked to the gym at a controlled pace.
No jogging. No theatrical discipline.
He needed data, not self-punishment. At the front desk, the same man from yesterday looked up from a newspaper. You came back. You sound surprised. Most guys your size come in, ask about bench press, do one workout, vanish for 6 months, then come back talking about how they used to be in shape. Saul stopped in front of the desk. What's your name? Frank. Frank, if I vanish for 6 months after one workout, you can say something insulting and I'll deserve it. Frank smirked. Only then.
No.
But then I'll agree. Frank laughed and waved him through. The treadmill gave Saul the first number of the day. 3 miles per hour. 3% incline. 15 minutes. Nasal breathing only. It was easy for the first few minutes, which meant nothing. Easy beginnings lied. The middle told the truth. By the 10th minute, his shirt had started sticking to his back. By the 12th, his mouth tried to open. He closed it. No. 15 minutes, the treadmill slowed. Saul stepped off, breathing through his nose until control stopped being useful and became theater. Then he took one mouth breath, slow and deliberate. He wrote on the folded sheet in his pocket. Treadmill, 3 miles per hour /3% /15 minutes. Nasal. Completed. Frank called from the desk. Not bad. Saul looked over. For who? For anybody. Then say that first. Frank laughed again.
Jesus Christ.
Christ is God. Saul said and moved to the machines. That shut Frank up for half a second. Useful. The circuit was not glorious. Leg curl, seated row, pull down, chest press, leg press, moderate weight, full usable range, controlled return,
No bouncing.
no numbers inflated by bad form. The leg curl gave him hamstrings, not pride. The row felt better than expected. The pull down exposed impatience. The chest press slowed on the final reps and annoyed him. The leg press made him respect the difference between having legs and having trained legs. He wrote only the numbers that mattered. Leg curl, 70 by 3 by 12. Seated row, 70 by 3 by 12. Pull down, 70 by 3 by 12. Chest press, 70 by 3 by 12. Hard final reps. Leg press, 130 by 3 by 15. While he folded the paper, a man with a red face, goatee, and sleeveless shirt drifted closer with dumbbells in his hands and too much interest in himself. "You knew?" the man asked. Saul finished writing. "Yes. You play football?"
No.
"You should. Big dude like you. I'll alert the universities." The man squinted. "You always answer like a smartass?" Saul turned fully this time. "Yes." Frank's newspaper did not move, but Saul saw his attention sharpen. The man shifted the dumbbells in his hands. "Just being friendly."
No.
"Friendly would have asked what I'm training for. You saw size and tried to place me somewhere familiar, so you didn't have to think." The man's face tightened. "You got a mouth on you. Then stop feeding it." The room did not stop, but it noticed. Machines kept moving. Plates kept touching stacks. A woman on a treadmill looked straight ahead too carefully. Frank called, "Mike, leave the kid alone. He's paying." Mike stared another second, then gave a short laugh that did not reach his eyes. "Whatever." He walked off. Saul did not watch him go. That was the point. The next set was harder because irritation wanted to enter the movement. Saul slowed the first rep down until the body remembered who was in charge. Form first. Pride after. If useful. Frank came over when Saul finished. "You track everything?" "I track what I intend to improve. Most people don't. Most people look like most people." Frank grinned despite himself. "You trying to be a bodybuilder?"
No.
"Power lifter?"
No.
"Fighter?" "Eventually." "What then?" Saul folded the paper. "A large problem with good conditioning." Frank stared, then laughed. "That's new. It's old. People just build it badly." Frank leaned against a machine. "You want advice?" "Earn the right." That could have gone wrong. It did not. Frank's face changed slightly. Less amusement. More measurement. "Don't skip legs." "I didn't." "Don't crash diet." "I won't." "Don't start boxing before your knees and lungs are ready." Big guys think power solves gas tank. Then they throw hard for 30 seconds and turn into furniture. Saul looked at him. That was worth hearing. "Useful." Frank pointed at him. "There. I earned one." "One." "Generous."
No.
"Accurate." Saul left the gym with a damp shirt, tired legs, and enough data to justify the morning. At the condo, he changed, added the numbers to the notebook, and left again with a list for the library. Mrs. Halpern saw him before he reached the desk. She looked disappointed that he had become a repeat problem. "Back again. Books remain inside. That is generally where we keep them. I approve of the system." She glanced at the list in his hand. "What today?" "Anatomy, sports physiology, nutrition, small business, bookkeeping, local directories, materials science if you have anything basic enough to be useful, textiles, tailoring, shoe repair, boxing and wrestling manuals." Mrs. Halpern stared. "That's not a list. That's a semester having a breakdown. I'm organizing it." "Are you a student?" "Yes." "Where?" Saul looked around. "Here, apparently." She tried not to smile and failed by a fraction. "You have your card?" He handed it over. Her eyes moved to the name. "Mr. Zaylhel." "Yes." You know, most people narrow topics down. Most people have narrow intentions. What are yours? To become harder to kill, harder to cheat, harder to impoverish, and better dressed. This time she did smile. Barely. Ambitious.
No.
Scheduled. She handed him the card back. Start with anatomy. It will punish you fastest. That sounds efficient. For the next several hours, Saul worked through the sections she pointed him toward. He did not try to master the subjects. That would have been fake. He needed first contact with the fields. Anatomy gave him joints, tendons, muscle groups, and warning labels men ignored until pain explained them. Sports physiology gave him the basic division between burst, burn, and recovery. Small business gave him margins, cash flow, taxes, licensing, inventory, insurance, and the many ways proud men lost money while calling it bad luck. Textiles gave him trade-offs. Cotton breathed but failed under stress. Wool had dignity and heat problems. Leather mattered more in shoes than men admitted. Synthetics solved some problems and created others. Every material had a cost. Every useful property demanded payment somewhere else. He copied less than he wanted and more than was comfortable. Copies cost money. So did time. The library had already made that clear. Late afternoon came before his stomach reminded him hard enough to win. Mrs. Halpern passed with a cart and stopped beside his table. You're allowed to check books out. I don't know yet which ones deserve to leave with me. That sounds exhausting. Judgment usually is. She looked over the open books. Sports science, accounting, textiles. Either you're planning a strange business or a complicated crime. Most complicated crimes are just businesses with worse stationery. Should I be concerned? Not if the books are returned on time. She shook her head. You need trade school catalogs? Adult education? Grant resources? Yes. The answer came faster than he expected. She noticed. Good. Let her notice. I'll bring what we have, she said. Thank you, Mrs. Halpern. That earned a brief pause. Precise respect worked better than warmth with certain people. She returned 20 minutes later with a thin stack of catalogs and 2 local resource sheets. He took them, read the first pages, and copied addresses. Before he left, he wrote one line in the notebook. Library. Trade/adult education resources available. Return with specific requests. That was enough. The next stop was the tailor from the circular. Palomo Tailoring sat in a narrow shop with old suits, fabric bolts, family photos, and a counter worn smooth by elbows and payment arguments. The man behind the counter had white hair combed back, glasses low on his nose, and the expression of someone who had spent 40 years watching men lie to themselves about their waists. Yes, the tailor asked. I need to learn what makes clothing move well without looking sloppy. The tailor stared. That is not usually how boys your age begin. Most boys my age dress like their mother surrendered. The old man's eyebrows lifted. You want a suit? Eventually. Eventually is not a purchase. No. It's a warning. The tailor looked him over. What do you have money for now? Information. The tailor laughed once. Information costs more than a suit. Good information should. That pleased him despite himself. What kind of suit you want eventually? Not a suit exactly. Dark. Breathable. Flexible without looking cheap. Reinforced where stress hits. Shoes that match but still move. Dress shirt usually black. No tie unless the room deserves one. The old man leaned back. You want to look respectable while running from police? I want to look respectable while not needing to run poorly from anyone. The tailor laughed louder. What is your name? Saul Zaylhel. Dominic Palomo. They shook hands. Dominic's grip was old but not weak. He came around the counter and looked Saul over without apology. Big frame. Long legs. Shoulders. Waist problem. Temporary. Everything is temporary until it becomes worse. Saul smiled. Fair. You lose weight. Anything I make now becomes garbage. Then I don't buy now. I learn. Dominic nodded. There. Brain under the mouth. And yet the mouth arrived first. Unfortunately, Dominic showed him fabrics. Not many. Enough. Wool blends. Cotton. Linen. Synthetics. Linings. Stretch panels. Cheap black cloth that faded. Better cloth that cost too much. He explained why big men looked sloppy faster, why bad pants punished movement, why shoes mattered, why summer suits betrayed fools, and why a tailor hated bodies that changed after measurements. Saul listened. This was useful. More useful than compliments. More useful than being told he carried himself well while wearing clothes that did not deserve the favor. Dominic handed him a dark fabric. Good cloth teaches the hand, he said. Bad cloth lies to the eye. Saul rubbed it between his fingers. Who makes clothing that can fight without looking like it wants to? Dominic's amusement thinned. That is a dangerous question. Only if answered badly. You military?
No.
Police?
No.
Criminal? Not by profession. Dominic stared, then laughed again, quieter. You are going to be trouble. Trouble usually starts before I arrive. I prefer correction. Arrogant. Yes. Most arrogant men can't afford it. Then they should rent humility until competent. Dominic liked that one. He pointed toward the door. Come back when you have money or better questions. I'll have both. Everybody says that.
No.
Everybody hopes it. I said it. Dominic smiled despite himself. Go before I charge you for standing. Saul left with 2 fabric names, a cobbler recommendation, and a clear answer he disliked but accepted. Do not buy custom clothing yet. Lose weight first. Earn money first. Then make taste expensive. He wrote outside, Belomo Tailoring. Return after weight loss/cash. Ask fabric durability, movement, shoe lead. Then he crossed nothing out. The line was clean enough. He scouted the barbershop near Bloomfield before going home. 3 chairs. 2 barbers. Loud room. Clean fades on 2 men leaving. 1 barber with steady hands and no patience for nonsense. Good candidate. Not tonight. No need to force a decision at closing time just because he disliked delay. Back at the condo, Saul spread the day's papers across the kitchen table. Workout numbers. Library notes. Trade resources. Fabric names. Cobbler lead. Business listings. Possible work categories. The pile was not impressive. That was useful. Impressive things tempted men into admiring themselves before anything had changed. He opened the phone directory and searched. Moving. Typing. Copying. Tutoring. Security. Computer services. Bookstores. Used goods. Restaurants. He marked possibilities in black ink and hated the lack of red again. Tomorrow needed money closer than stocks, closer than grand strategy, closer than anything that required paperwork he did not yet have. Future knowledge without current capital was not wealth. It was a locked room with a window. He wrote, money, immediate cash first, labor plus useful speech, moving, copywriting, clerical, tutoring, delivery, avoid criminal dependency, then, need haircut, red pens, copy money, income lead. He stopped there. The page did not need a speech. His body ached from the gym. His head ached from the books. His cash remained too low for the shape of his intentions. Good. The first enemy was insufficient cash flow. Saul closed the notebook. He did not need inspiration. He needed money. Chapter 3, Cash Flow and First Impressions. The barbershop door opened with a bell that made every man inside look up. 3 chairs. 2 barbers. A television mounted in the corner with the volume low enough to be ignored and loud enough to excuse men from silence. The room smelled of alcohol, hair oil, warm clippers, and talk. Saul stepped inside. The barber he had watched the night before was finishing the back of a middle-aged man's neck. Black, lean, late 30s, steady hands. The kind of stillness that came from doing the same precise work thousands of times without letting boredom dull the blade. He looked at Saul through the mirror. You need a cut? Eventually, yes. First I need to know if you can cut 4C hair without treating it like a punishment. Two men in the waiting chairs laughed. The barber's mouth twitched. You always walk in insulting people you might pay? Only if the service involves my head. That's supposed to be better? It's honest. The man under the cape chuckled. He got you, Darnell. Darnell gave Saul a longer look. Sit down. Let me see. Saul crossed the room and sat. Darnell examined his hair with professional hands. He lifted the curls, checked density, found the trouble spots, parted once, then twice. You been letting this go. Maintenance suffered. That what we calling it? Today, yes. A man in a Yankees cap leaned back in his chair. You from around here? Oakland. California. Unless New Jersey invented a second one to make paperwork harder. The waiting chairs laughed again. Darnell pointed the comb at him. What you want? Clean-shaven face. Low to mid-taper. Do not butcher the top. Trim damaged or knotted sections only. If there's matting, target it with scissors. I'm growing the top long-term. The room quieted by half a degree. Darnell stared at him through the mirror. That's the most specific thing anybody said in this shop all week. Specificity protects both of us. From what? Failure. The man under the cape laughed. Damn. Darnell shook his head. You got a lot of mouth for somebody who needs me to keep him pretty. If I doubted your hands, I wouldn't be in the chair. That landed better. Darnell nodded once. All right, time traveler. Let's see. The clippers came on. Saul sat still. He disliked surrendering access to his head. A barber could fix a man's presentation or punish him for trusting the wrong chair. Darnell worked cleanly. That mattered more than reassurance. The fade took shape without theater. Low to mid-sharp. The top stayed intact except for small corrections. The shave removed the roughness his tools had only argued with. When Darnell finished, he handed Saul a small mirror and turned the chair slightly. Saul checked left, right, back, clean. The improvement was immediate. Yes, Saul said. Damn. That hurt you? No. Accuracy is pleasant. Darnell laughed. You always talk like that? When rewarded. That a compliment? Limited term. Get out my chair. Saul paid $15 on a $12 cut. Darnell looked at the bills. You tip like a man planning to come back. I am. Every month. Every 2 to 3 weeks. Good. I can keep it sharp. You can. The question is whether you will. Darnell grinned. Out. Saul stood. At the door, Darnell called after him. Hey, Oakland. Saul turned. You looking for work? The question struck clean. Depends. My cousin runs moving jobs. Cash sometimes. Legal enough. Big guys useful. Smart big guys more useful if they don't annoy everybody into dropping furniture. Furniture does not care if I annoy men. Customers do. Customers pay after delivery. Darnell laughed and grabbed a business card from the counter. Call him, Marcus. Tell him Darnell sent you. And maybe shut up twice a day. Saul took the card. I'll consider one. Generous. Experimental. Outside, Saul wrote on the back of an old receipt. Darnell haircut. Marcus moving lead. Call today. That was enough. The library took the next hours. Mrs. Halpern saw him before he reached the desk. Well, she said. That is an improvement. I'll inform Darnell his work passed inspection. I did not say that. You implied enough. She looked over her glasses. Today's list. Advertising. Local business directories. Basic web access. Print costs. Bookkeeping templates. Trade catalogs. Footwear construction if available. Planning to become a shoemaker? Planning to understand what I stand on. Mrs. Halpern made a small sound and took the list. Computers are booked until 1. Books first. Efficient. Occasionally. She led him toward the business shelves and left him with a stack that proved most advertising writers confused volume with persuasion. He skimmed hard. Bad manuals died fast. Useful ones survived by making the same point in different clothes. Small businesses rarely sold only the object. They sold trust, convenience, relief, status, habit, memory, and the chance for a customer to feel less stupid after spending money. A tailor sold fit. A barber sold restoration. A restaurant sold the feeling that dinner had been chosen by someone with taste. A moving crew sold the absence of disaster. Saul copied the part that mattered. Find leak. Name leak. Offer small fix. Charge enough to be respected. Turn one fix into repeat work. At 1, Mrs. Halpern gave him a computer terminal. The internet irritated him within 3 minutes. Pages loaded slowly. Search fought back. Businesses were invisible by accident. Some had directory listings with no useful language. Others had phone numbers, hours, and ads that sounded written by a tired nephew. Saul's irritation became interest. Local businesses did not need miracles. Most needed flyers that said something, phone scripts that made callers stay on the line, customer cards, cleaner directory copy, and basic records. A few would need early web presence. Most needed someone to stop them from insulting their own work in print. He wrote, service package, ad copy, flyers, customer cards, phone script, basic bookkeeping sheet, directory review. Then he packed up. Dominic Bellomo's shop smelled the same as yesterday. Cloth, steam, old wood, and money that had passed through careful hands. Dominic looked up from pinning a sleeve. Haircut. Yes. Better. Clothes still bad. I came to address your portion eventually. My portion costs money. I came with an offer. Dominic set the sleeve aside. I'm listening because I am old and bored. Interest is pending. Saul placed a handwritten page on the counter. The circular ad had read, alterations and custom suits. Good prices. Family owned. Call Dominic. Saul's version read, Bellomo tailoring. Clothes should fit the man, not punish him for having shoulders. Alterations. Custom work. Formal wear. Repairs. 40 years of hands-on tailoring. Bring the garment. We'll tell you the truth. Dominic read it once. Then again. His face barely changed. Good. Too long. Dominic said. For small print, yes. For a flyer, workable. Your current ad sounds like you sell happy endings. Dominic's eyes lifted. Careful. If you wanted careful, you would have kept the bad ad. You have skill. The ad should imply judgment. Men with strange bodies need tailors because normal clothing lies to them. Women bring dresses because they fear an event making them look foolish. Your ad sells labor. It should sell relief. Dominic looked back at the page. You speak like this to everyone? No. Some people understand faster. Insult and compliment together. Very ugly habit. Useful one. The bell over the door rang. Dominic's eyes moved past Saul.
Ah, Kelly.
1 minute. Saul turned. Kelly Lombardo entered with a garment bag over one arm. Late teens. Dark hair. Pretty without leaning on softness. Her clothes were simple, clean, and chosen by someone who understood that being seen was different from asking to be watched. Her eyes moved from Dominic to Saul. She paused there. Measurement. Good. Sorry, she said. I can come back. Dominic waved a hand. You're fine. This young philosopher is telling me my business ad is garbage. Kelly looked at Saul again. Is it? Yes. You didn't ask which ad. He pointed his thumb over his shoulder. Does he look like he knows how to write ads? Dominic pointed at him. See? Mouth. Kelly, unable to hold back her laugh, stepped closer and read the page. She read the old circular too. Good. She checked the evidence before joining the room. Then she said, his is better. Dominic made a wounded sound. Traitor. It is. Kelly said. Yours sounds cheap. Dominic looked upward. God gives me customers and then turns them against me. Saul looked at Kelly. You judge cleanly. Her eyebrows lifted. Is that supposed to be praise? It arrived as praise. Very generous. Accurate. Kelly's mouth curved before she stopped it. Dominic tapped the paper. What do you want? $20 for this wording if you use it. $50 for 3 flyer versions and a customer card. More if you want circular placement and directory copy reviewed. Dominic stared. You are 19? Yes. You know tailoring? Some. Advertising. Enough to know your ad implies the wrong idea about your hands. Dominic's mouth twitched. Kelly looked from one to the other. You write ads. I write sentences. Some can be sold. That sounds like a yes trying to wear a crown. It can afford one. She smiled despite herself. Do you always talk like you're trying to win?
No.
When don't you? When I win. Dominic groaned. Madonna. Kelly laughed. The sound was controlled at first, then escaped a little more than she intended. She noticed and corrected her face. Saul noticed the correction. She noticed him noticing. Better. You're very sure of yourself, she said. Yes. You don't think that's a flaw? Only when unsupported. And when you're wrong? I correct the problem. That's it. That is already more than most people do. Dominic pointed toward the ceiling. He says one normal thing, finally, and God lets me hear it. Kelly laughed again. Dominic counted $20 from the register with theatrical resentment and handed it over. Saul took the bill. First money in this world earned by his own mind. Small. Clean. Enough to prove the method could be paid. Dominic turned to Kelly. Your dress is ready. It's for my cousin, she said, glancing at Saul. Not mine. I did not ask. No. But you looked like you were deciding something. I was. Her chin lifted. And Dominic does good work. The garment bag hangs like it contains correction. Kelly stared, then laughed quietly. You are strange. I've been told by people less interesting. Dominic made another noise. Out. Both of you. My shop is becoming a theater. Kelly paid while Dominic fussed over the garment. Saul asked for a blank sheet and wrote the flyer terms. Payment, drafts, use rights, date due. Simple language. Clear enough to avoid future memory problems. Kelly watched him write. You from around here? She asked. Oakland. California. Yes. What brings you to Jersey? War, study, and inconvenience. Dominic muttered. He means he does not want to answer. Saul looked at Kelly. I mean, the truth isn't believable. Her expression shifted slightly. A serious answer had gotten through. Kelly adjusted the garment bag. Well, Saul from Oakland. Good luck selling sentences. He looked at her properly. Thank you, Kelly Lombardo. She blinked. I didn't give you my last name. Dominic said. Lombardo dress yesterday while pretending not to gossip. Dominic looked offended. I did not. You did. Kelly's eyes narrowed. That's either impressive or creepy. Depends what I do with it. And what will you do with it? That depends on you. She held his gaze, then nodded once. You're a strange man. She left. The bell rang behind her. Dominic watched Saul watching the door and clicked his tongue. Careful. With what? She's my second niece. Saul turned back. Dominic stared for a long moment. You are trouble. Yes. Nos cham. Before God, plenty. Before men, selectively. Dominic crossed himself, though Saul could not tell how seriously. Go make my flyers. Saul left with $20, a job, and a name he remembered without writing down. The afternoon gave him the moving lead. Marcus answered on the third ring and sounded suspicious until Saul mentioned Darnell. Yeah. Darnell gave me your card. You have moving work. You big as he said? Large enough. More useful if you answer questions. Marcus paused. What questions? Dollies, straps, gloves, ramp, stairs, number of jobs, cash amount. You always ask this much? Only when my spine is invited. Marcus laughed into the phone. Man, just show up. I will. Bring enough straps if you own them. Men lose years of back health trying to prove furniture respects courage. There was another pause. Saturday, 7. Don't be late. The line clicked dead. Saul wrote, Marcus moving job. Saturday, 7 a.m. Ask pay before load. By evening, he went to Vesuvio. Artie appeared before the hostess finished deciding whether to recognize him. You again? Artie said. Yes. Should I be worried? Probably. Dinner is safe. Artie laughed, then noticed the haircut. Look at you. Cleaned up. Delayed maintenance corrected. You always say normal things weird? Normal things are often lazy. Artie led him to a better table than last time. Small adjustment. Useful. Saul ordered without ceremony. Artie lingered near the table, waiting to see whether the night would behave. Saul looked up. Your ad is bad. Artie blinked. My what? Restaurant ad. Yellow pages. Local circular mention. Bad. You came in to insult my advertising? I came in to eat and possibly sell you a correction. You're selling corrections now? Yes. That a California thing? Competence travels. Artie crossed his arms. His pride had teeth. Soft ones, but still teeth. Saul changed angle. Your food is better than your language about your food. That's pathetic. Artie's posture shifted. There. Useful correction had to protect the craft before it touched the ego. Artie leaned closer. All right, genius. What's wrong with it? Saul told him enough to make the problem visible. The ad sold Italian food. Everyone sold Italian food. Vesuvio needed to sell Artie's presence without making him look desperate for applause. It needed warmth, care, seriousness, and a reason for a man to bring a woman there without feeling obvious. Artie listened, really listened, then said, You know a lot for a kid. Do not use my age to dodge the point. Artie exhaled through a half laugh. You ever just say thank you? When thankful? When's that? I'd assume when I'm getting topped off by a 10. Artie's eyes widened before making sure his wife wasn't around. The room changed near the entrance. Artie felt it first. Then Saul saw him feel it. Tony had arrived with Polly and Christopher. The haircut made recognition immediate. Tony smiled. Well, look who's here. Artie muttered, Please don't start. Saul looked up at him. That was addressed to me. Artie closed his mouth. Tony approached. Christopher looked Saul over with open dislike. Polly looked him over with interest sharp enough to be useful. Kid got a haircut, Tony said. Saul turned in his chair. And you remain observant. Polly laughed. Oh, this the guy? Christopher said. What guy? The funny kid. Tony said. Saul, right? Correct. Tony gestured with his chin. My nephew, Christopher. Polly. Saul looked at Christopher first. Young. Restless. Hungry for rank. Then Polly. Older. Amused. Watching everything. Gentleman. Saul said. Christopher smirked. Gentleman? The fuck? You a professor? You might need one. If you think, gentleman, is a big word. Polly pointed. He talks nice. Saul looked at him. That worries you? Polly's grin sharpened. Tony watched. Christopher stepped half a pace closer. You always this cute? Artie's face tightened. Saul folded his napkin and placed it beside his plate. Slowly. Then he looked at Christopher. Sometimes I'm expensive. Tony made a sound under his breath. Christopher's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means keep asking questions with your chest out and eventually you'll purchase an answer. The nearby table quieted. Polly's grin remained, but his eyes lost some of the joke. Christopher took another step. Tony put out a hand without looking at him. Relax. Christopher stopped. That was worse for him than moving would have been. Saul saw it. Tony saw Saul see it. Christopher saw both of them see it. Tony smiled. You got a mouth. Yes. You know, mouths get people in trouble. Only when weak men govern the ears. Polly barked a laugh. Christopher said, The fuck you say? Saul looked at Tony. Is he usually behind the conversation? Or did I arrive on a difficult day? Polly laughed harder. Artie whispered,
Jesus Christ.
Tony's smile held. The insult had landed sideways. Saul had treated Tony as the adult responsible for Christopher's noise. Tony leaned slightly closer. You're brave, huh? Saul smiled. Brave requires fear first. Silence. Then Tony laughed, loud enough to release everyone else. Polly joined him. Christopher did not. All right, Tony said. Eat your dinner, Professor. Big guy to big guy advice, huh? What? You're fat and old. So you're trying to impart wisdom on a younger fat man, right? Tony stared, then laughed again. You're something else. Polly made a noise like the laugh had hurt. Tony pointed at Saul. Careful. Saul's smile faded by 1 degree. Always. That word changed Tony's face for half a second. Then he moved away with Polly and Christopher. Christopher looked back once. Saul returned to his meal. Artie arrived 2 minutes later, pale with anger. What the hell is wrong with you? Several things. Be precise. You don't talk to people like that here. People talk to me like that here. That's different. Saul looked up. Because they have permission? Artie opened his mouth. Closed it. Careful. Saul said. If you say yes, you'll hear yourself. Artie's face flushed. You don't understand. I understand why you're upset. I'm upset because you're gonna get hurt. You're upset because I spoke where you swallow. That hit. Maybe too hard. Saul lowered his voice enough to keep the correction useful. Your food is good. Your restaurant is good. Stop acting like truth has to whisper in rooms where criminals eat. Artie looked toward Tony's table, then back. For once, he did not answer quickly. Saul let him leave. Dinner ended with a smaller conversation about advertising. Artie wanted to pretend the earlier exchange had ended. Saul allowed it because pride sometimes needed time before it could be handled again. He paid.
Proper tip.
Outside, Christopher waited near the wall with a cigarette. The street had darkened enough for headlights to start controlling faces. Christopher pushed off the wall when Saul stepped out. Saul stopped several feet away. Do you need something? Or did humiliation make you gay? Christopher's jaw flexed. You think you're funny. You keep repeating other men's observations. Try birthing one. You don't know who the fuck you're talking to. Saul took 1 step closer. Enough to change the distance. I know what you are. Christopher glared. Yeah? What's that? Saul looked him over. A young man begging older criminals to certify his manhood. Because deep down, you know without a gang, you're just a bitch with a dick. Christopher's face changed. The cigarette dropped from his hand. Saul's body prepared without display. Feet placed. Hands loose. Distance measured. Christopher might have a weapon. He might have backup. Tony was inside. All of that mattered. Christopher leaned in. You got a problem with me?
No.
Christopher blinked. Then what the fuck was that? Diagnosis. The door opened behind them. Tony stepped out. Everything all right? Christopher kept staring at Saul. Saul looked at Tony. Your nephew asked for clarification. Tony's eyes moved between them. And you gave it? Generously. Tony smiled without humor. Christopher said, This guy's a prick. Finally. Original work. Christopher's hand twitched. Tony's voice hardened. Chris. That stopped him again. Saul stepped back. Good evening. He walked away first. Behind him, Christopher cursed under his breath. Tony said something low. Saul kept walking. At the condo, he opened the notebook and wrote the day's final ledger. Income. Palomo ad copy plus $20. Flyer job pending. Lead. Marcus moving job. Saturday 7 a.m. Vesuvio. Second public contact. Christopher challenged. Tony stopped him. Exposure increased. Need. Red pens, copy money, work gloves, haircut maintenance. He put the $20 bill beside the notebook. $20 did not change his life. Proved the method could be paid. Christopher had lost face in public. That could be used too. For Chapter 4, Furniture Teaches Gravity. Dominic Bellomo read the third flyer twice. That was the first good sign. The tailor shop was warm, narrow, and already irritated by the day. Dominic stood behind the counter with 3 drafts spread before him, while an elderly woman near the fitting mirror watched both of them. Version 1 sold formal wear. Version 2 sold repairs and alterations. Version 3 addressed men with difficult builds. Dominic stopped on that one. Big shoulders, long arms, thick neck, narrow patience. Off the rack was made for average bodies. Bellomo Tailoring corrects the insult. Alterations, custom work, repairs, and formal wear. Bring the garment. We'll tell you the truth. Dominic tapped the page. You think you are very clever. You know I am. The elderly woman leaned closer. The young man's is better. Dominic looked defeated. How'd you know which one is mine? Saul looked over, curious. The woman smiled faintly, nostalgia settling into the lines of her face. Because Dominic has never been good with words. You should have seen him in English class. Saul's eyes brightened. Dominic pointed at her. What did I tell you about bringing that up?
Sorry, Dom-Dom.
It's true. Marilyn, if you call me Dom-Dom one more goddamn time. Old people are amusing sometimes. Saul said, stepping back to get a better view. Dominic turned on him. Stop toying with me, boy, or I'll pay half price. Saul's expression went still. Half off. Dominic's eyes narrowed. Saul turned slightly toward the door. You know, I think Rizzo's Tailoring might enjoy a 50% discount. Dominic's jaw clenched. Saul kept moving. 1 step. 2. The old tailor's pride fought his business sense and lost. No, wait. Saul turned back. The blankness on his face made it worse. Fuck. Fine, you thieving brat. I'll pay full price. Marilyn laughed softly from the side. Dominic took 1 slow breath, then focused on the page again. 3rd one. The men will like it. The wives will like it first. Dominic frowned. Saul pointed to the line. Men tolerate bad outfits longer. Women point at it. Make the wife see the answer before the husband admits the problem. Marilyn clasped her hands once. That is true. Dominic spread his hands. A snot-nosed brat is teaching me business. You paid for the privilege. I have not paid yet. Then Mr. Rizzo will be hearing from me. Marilyn laughed again. Dominic muttered something in Italian, opened the register and counted out the money.
$50.
Saul took it without ceremony. Ceremony was for large sums or weak egos. Dominic slid the 3rd draft back across the counter. Make this ready for print. Better spacing.
No childish decoration.
Decoration is what bad copy wears when it has no argument. Good. We agree. Now get the fuck outta here. Saul folded the money into his wallet. Before leaving, he wrote the practical pieces on the back of a blank card. Bellomo, Flyer version 3 approved. Prepare print draft. $50 paid. Then he crossed the street to the library and spent the rest of Friday narrowing the next rung. Immediate cash. Moving work. Copywriting. Odd jobs. Short-term skill income. Business writing. Basic bookkeeping. Early web assistance. Tutoring if credentials could be solved or avoided. Medium-term leverage. Trade knowledge. Computer literacy. Local business services. Long-term capital could wait. A starving man did not buy a map to a country he could not afford to enter. Saturday belonged to Marcus. His truck waited outside a small warehouse lot at 6:56. Saul arrived fed, watered, and carrying more packed food than pride preferred. Moving furniture underfed was stupidity with a work ethic. Marcus stood by the truck with a clipboard in one hand and the calm impatience of a man used to houses, stairs, customers, and fools. You Saul? Yes. Marcus looked him over. Darnell said you were big. Darnell has eyes. Darnell also said you talk like a judge. My first decree is that you cut the small talk. Marcus laughed once and pointed toward the truck. Luis. Jerry. Luis was short, strong, and quiet. His forearms looked built by years of not wasting motion. Jerry was white, lanky, and already smoking with the confidence of a man who thought lungs were optional. Jerry looked Saul up and down. Damn, we moving furniture or signing a linebacker? People with linebacker money wouldn't be moving couches.
Luis snorted.
Marcus hid a smile. Settle down, guys. Jerry squinted, deciding whether he had been beaten in a game he had not known was open. Funny guy. Marcus clapped his hands once. Enough. First job's in Montclair. 2-bedroom apartment. 3rd floor. Elevator's broken. Lady says the couch is not that heavy. So you know what that means. We do not scratch walls, we do not break lamps. And if you drop something, you better have a religious experience before it hits the floor. Saul liked him more immediately. A man who respected consequences before labor began was worth hearing. The first job taught fast. Furniture was different from iron. Iron moved on rails through handles in numbers that pretended to be clean. Furniture shifted, snagged, twisted against the hand. It turned doorways into accusations and staircases into death marches. The couch was exactly what Marcus had promised. A bastard. 3rd floor. Narrow turn. Bad angle. Soft armrests that hid hard structure underneath. Jerry wanted to force it through the turn. Luis wanted another inch of rotation. Marcus cursed at the wall, the couch, and the absent elevator in equal order. Saul held the lower end, braced on the stairs, sweat already collecting under his shirt. Push! Jerry snapped.
No.
Jerry looked down. The hell you mean no? Saul's grip tightened on the couch. Use your eyes, retard. It's wedged. Fix the angle, or is there a reason you're trying to punch a hole in the wall? Marcus looked over the top of the couch. He's right. Drop 2 inches. Rotate left. Luis, take the corner. Jerry, stop trying to win against upholstery.
Luis grinned.
Jerry scowled but adjusted. The couch moved. Slowly. Ugly. Successfully. By the time they loaded the last box from the apartment, Saul's hands had learned several facts the gym had failed to mention. Grip failed before pride. Stairs punished bad breathing. Furniture had edges where men least wanted them. Sweat did not care about dignity. Marcus handed him a bottle of water near the truck. You listen better than most first-timers. I listen to competent instruction. Smart. Jerry flicked ash near the curb. Could have forced the couch. I thought cigarettes helped relax your mind. Saul said. Keep puffing, Jerry. Luis laughed into his bottle. Marcus pointed at Jerry. Jerry, if you break something, I'm docking the expenses from your pay. The second job went cleaner. A dresser, 2 mattresses, 6 boxes of books, 1 desk, 1 lamp nearly murdered by Jerry's elbow and saved by Luis's hand. By noon, Saul's forearms had started to burn. His back remained safe. His legs were still useful. Conditioning had not failed, but it had stopped pretending the day was free. Lunch was 10 minutes on the tailgate. Saul drank water, checked his hands, and flexed his fingers.
No torn skin.
Good enough. Marcus studied him. You ever done this before?
No.
Could have fooled me. That means I am who I say I am. Marcus leaned back against the truck. Careful with ego. It can bring you up and drop you just as fast. I know the difference. Jerry snorted, still mad about earlier. Arrogant son of a bitch. Saul glanced at him. Luis almost choked. Marcus shook his head. Don't start making him funnier. I got enough problems. The afternoon job was in a nicer neighborhood. That became obvious before they reached the house. Cleaner lawns. Better cars. More expensive silence. Marcus checked the address twice, then pulled up in front of a 2-story home with trimmed hedges and a woman already waiting on the porch. She was in her 40s, composed, well-dressed, and tense enough to direct traffic with her eyebrows. Mrs. Lombardo. Saul knew the name before Marcus said it. Then Kelly stepped out behind her. She saw Saul and stopped. Only half a second. Enough. Marcus climbed out. Mrs. Lombardo? Yes, thank you for coming. The items are in the front room and upstairs. Please be very careful. We'll handle it, Marcus said. Mrs. Lombardo looked at Saul, then back to Marcus. Is he new? Yes, Marcus said. He's large. Saul looked at Kelly. Kelly looked away first, but the corner of her mouth moved before she managed it. Marcus answered before Saul could. Large helps. Mrs. Lombardo did not look convinced. Kelly came down the porch steps with a folded list. Marcus, right? Yes. My mother made a list. I can tell. Kelly ignored that and handed it over. Her eyes returned to Saul. Saul. Kelly Lombardo. My last name remains known then. For now. For now. I didn't stutter. Mrs. Lombardo looked between them. You two know each other? Tailor shop, Kelly said. Saul added, barely. Mrs. Lombardo's eyes sharpened. Barely? Long enough for him to insult Dominic's advertising, Kelly said. Marcus looked at Saul. You doing side work on my job? Not yet. Keep it that way until we're paid. The first items were easy. Boxes, chairs, a small table, lamps wrapped in blankets. Mrs. Lombardo watched every movement and gave instructions faster than they could become useful. Careful with that. Turn it more. Don't scrape the base. That one goes near the wall. Actually, no, maybe the other side. By the fourth correction, Marcus's jaw had gone tight. Damn, this bitch won't shut up. Luis kept his eyes on the work and adjusted his grip without wasting breath. This is going to take long. Jerry was not built for silent suffering. He shifted the box in his hands and muttered low enough for Mrs. Lombardo to miss it. Bitch! Saul heard him. So did Kelly. Her eyes cut toward Jerry first, then Saul, as if waiting to see if he would stand up for her mother. Saul carried a box of framed photographs past her and kept his voice low. Your mother is a bitch. Kelly gasped, completely gobsmacked. Did you? She took a second to process what he said. Then anger stirred. She doesn't want you guys damaging the house. She whispered. That explains the feeling. It doesn't change the effect. What effect? She's speaking outside of her place. Kelly's eyes sharpened. You always this sympathetic? Absolutely. You're awful. She rolled her eyes but said nothing. They moved a dining table next. Mrs. Lombardo tried to guide from the hallway. No, not like that. Tilt it. The other way. Wait, you're too close to the wall. The table stalled. Jerry shifted wrong. Marcus said, Hold. Mrs. Lombardo stepped closer. You're going to scratch it. Saul turned his head. Lady. The room stilled. Kelly's eyes went to him immediately. Mrs. Lombardo blinked, surprised by the address. Yes. If you keep talking while we have things in our hands, we're bound to break something. Her face tightened. Excuse me? Marcus is the one we listen to. You sit back and watch? Or you find somebody else to do the job? Jerry whispered. Oh boy. Kelly's face flushed in embarrassment. Her eyes widened in shock, but she did not interrupt. Mrs. Lombardo drew herself up. This is my house. I didn't ask. You either get with the program or this is over. I'm not entertaining your nonsense any longer. Be quiet while we work. Our job isn't to listen to your bitching. Marcus looked at the ceiling. Luis looked at the floor. Kelly pressed her lips together. For 1 second, the job balanced on a bad edge. Mrs. Lombardo looked like she was about to burst. You! Then Kelly stepped in. Mom! Mrs. Lombardo turned on her. Kelly! He's being rude. He's also right. Saul looked at Kelly, his face calm and clearly amused. She did not look away. Mrs. Lombardo inhaled through her nose. Marcus said carefully, Ma'am, we'll move slower. You tell me where it goes before we lift. Once it's up, I call the movement. Mrs. Lombardo's anger had nowhere clean to go. She took the olive branch to save face. Fine. Thank you, Marcus said. Saul waited for Marcus's count. The table moved cleanly. No scratch. No broken leg. No further instruction from Mrs. Lombardo until it was down. Jerry leaned near Saul afterward. You trying to get us fired? Money isn't worth listening to a woman's clucking. You always talk like that? Only when I want to. Marcus passed behind them. I like you, man. The cabinet came last. It was taller than Saul expected, darker, heavier, and awkward in the way old furniture became when built by men who assumed future generations would have stronger backs and fewer hallways. Mrs. Lombardo stood in the front room with both hands clasped. Kelly stayed near the staircase, quiet now. Marcus inspected the cabinet from all sides. No rusing, he said. Blanket the corners. Luis high left. Saul low right. Jerry, you're guiding the base. You shift when I say shift. Jerry rolled his eyes. Marcus saw it. I mean it. I heard you. You heard me? Must be my birthday or something. Saul laughed once. The lift began badly but recoverably. The cabinet resisted the doorway. Marcus adjusted the angle. Saul took more of the lower weight for 3 seconds while Luis cleared the corner. His grip burned. His legs held. Back neutral. No twist. Down 1. Marcus said. They lowered. Rotate. The cabinet turned. Jerry shifted early. The base kicked left. Mrs. Lombardo gasped. Kelly stepped forward. The first thought came hot and useless. I should let this fall on this schmuck. Saul clamped hard and drove his weight down through his legs. The cabinet stopped with a violent shudder inches before the corner could smash into the wall. For half a second, nobody spoke. Saul's forearms screamed. Then he said, calm and sharp, freeze. Everyone froze. His voice did not rise. That helped. Jerry, he said, be grateful we're on a job. Jerry's face had gone pale under the attitude. Marcus, I see it. Count it. Marcus moved fast. On 3. Luis, lift half. Saul, hold base. Jerry, do nothing until I say your name. 1, 2, 3. They corrected the angle. The cabinet cleared the doorway. The room breathed again. Mrs. Lombardo put one hand to her chest. Kelly stood dazed, eyes fixed on Saul. The cabinet should have fallen. He had stopped it anyway. A hot, unwanted pull moved through her body before she could turn it into anger. Her pride arrived a moment late and found attraction already sitting there. That made her face go tighter. They set the cabinet in place without further incident. Marcus turned on Jerry the instant the blanket came off. He moved 1 step in, shifted his balance, twisted his hips, and landed a clean shot into Jerry's diaphragm. Mrs. Lombardo flinched. Kelly froze. Luis looked away like a man protecting his own paycheck from witnessing too much. Saul only flexed his fingers once and watched. What did I fucking say? Marcus snapped. Jerry's breath left his body. He folded around the hip, teeth clenched, fighting for air for 3 ugly seconds before sound came back into him. I thought. You thought nothing, motherfucker. Tears from the lost breath formed at the corners of Jerry's eyes. It was slipping, man. It slipped because you shifted. You were just told to stop fucking around, and you still haven't learned. Saul flexed his fingers again and let them relax. Jerry looked at him. For once, he had no joke ready. Saul gave him one anyway. If I ever work with you again, I'll let nature take its course next time. Luis turned away, laughing under his breath. Marcus did not laugh. Jerry, truck. Jerry left. Mrs. Lombardo approached the cabinet and touched the side like she expected to find a wound. There was none. Her voice softened against her will. Thank you. Marcus nodded. She looked at Saul next. The thank you stuck behind pride for a second. Kelly supplied it. He caught it, Mom. I saw. Mrs. Lombardo looked at Saul. Thank you. Saul looked her up and down before answering. Better. That answer came plain. Mrs. Lombardo stared. You're too much. Outside, Marcus handled payment while Luis and Jerry secured the truck. Kelly came down the steps carrying 2 bottles of water. She handed one to Saul. He took it. No thank you.
No smile.
Just the bottle. Kelly waited half a second. No, thank you. Saul looked at her.
No blowhov.
Her face changed. Shock came first. Anger followed close enough to step on it. You always talk to women like that? Only when I want to. I gave you water. He shrugged. My mother paid you. Yeah, she paid me for doing my job. She owed me money. Kelly stepped closer, still holding the second bottle. And that gives you the right to talk to her like that in her own house?
No.
What gives me the right is her talking out of line. Her eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means your mother wasn't behaving how a woman should. She was worried. She can be worried and still adhere to the social expectations of women. So you get to put her in her place? I put the job back in order. Kelly's mouth tightened. That's a very clean way to say you're misogynistic. Saul opened the bottle.
No.
She laughed once, sharp and unbelieving.
No.
Do you know what misogyny means? It means someone who hates or feels contempt for women. This is the problem. Instead of thinking for yourself, you run along with this insane definition. Kelly's brows drew together. Excuse me? Let me ask you something. Think of a man watching an innocent woman or elder in his own family getting violently attacked. In response, he runs away and calls the police. Kelly frowned. Where are you going with this? Think of the scenario. A man in your family does that while your mother is getting beaten. How would you feel? Her face hardened. I'd feel disgust. What else? I'd think he was pathetic. And I'd never want to be around him again. There. Right there. Now switch him out for a woman in your family doing the exact same thing. How would you feel? Kelly opened her mouth, then stopped. For 1 second, she actually thought about it. That was the problem. The answer did not come the same way. She pictured a woman in the family running, calling the police, refusing to physically intervene, and the disgust did not rise with the same heat. Her face changed. Saul saw it. You see it now. What is the point of this? To show you that misogyny is a worthless term. By your own standard, you're a misandrist. Kelly wanted to argue. Nothing clean came out. That made her angrier. Saul continued before she could rebuild the wall. The same disgust you just felt toward that man is how I felt about your mother's behavior. I'm sure you'd have far harsher words for him than I had for your mother. So what gives you a special right to have expectations of men, but not let men have expectations of women? Kelly's eyes hardened. So women should just obey? Good women obey well. Intelligent women obey better. Her face changed. That is disgusting.
No.
Disobedient women are disgusting. Women who serve under a man's frame become powerful. Powerful by serving a man? Powerful by serving a frame large enough to carry them somewhere rebellion never could. Kelly stared at him. And if she knows more than him? That's for him to determine. And if he's wrong? She corrects him inside the order. And if he doesn't listen? Then the cards land where they do. But it's healthier to make a mistake using the correct formula than to get the right answer with a broken one. She doesn't get to lead?
No.
Even if she's smarter? Especially if she's smarter. Kelly stepped closer. You think submission makes women strong? Yes, submission is uniquely virtuous in women in a way it is not in men. Her jaw tightened. And you confuse control with virtue. Order is virtue. And you decide what order is? In my life? Yes. In others, not directly. Her eyes held his. For a moment, the argument had no clean exit. Then Saul tightened his grip around the bottle. Pain flared across his fingers. His face moved before he could stop it. Kelly saw. Her gaze dropped to his hands. The red pressure marks were darker now, cut across the skin where the cabinet had tried to make a lesson out of him. Are you hurt?
No.
You sure? Yes. She narrowed her eyes. You're very good at answering the question you prefer. He looked at the marks across his fingers. Skin will complain. Your mother would have been worse. My mom didn't care about that cabinet. That changed the sentence. Saul nodded once. I should have let nature take its course. Kelly laughed before she could stop herself. Then she looked annoyed that he had gotten that from her. Don't say that. Saul took a slow breath. Kelly tilted her head. You are much quieter when you work. Enjoy it while you can. You never soften up. The difference is I don't lie to myself. You think I lie to myself? Yes. About what? Whether you're into me. Kelly's mouth opened, then closed. Good. No need to press. Marcus called. Saul. Truck. Saul stepped back. See you. Yeah. Her voice came out softer than her face wanted it to. The truck pulled away. She did not look away until it turned the corner. Marcus glanced at Saul from the driver's seat. You make all customer interactions weird? Or just the pretty ones? Saul looked out the window. Only the ones with nice asses. Luis laughed from the back. Marcus shook his head. Man. Jerry muttered. He's gonna get us sued. No. Saul said. You almost got us sued. I prevented it. Jerry opened his mouth. Closed it. By the time Marcus dropped him near the condo, Saul's body was exhausted in a way the gym had not taught. Grip. Back. Legs. Breath. Patience. Everything had been hit together. Moving work paid well, but not enough for the effort and time. At the kitchen table, he counted the day's money and wrote the ledger in his notebook. Palomo flyer, plus $50. Moving work, plus $80. Food/water, minus $7. Cash increase, plus $123. The money was small. Before this world, he had finally started touching real money. Here, a moving shift and a tailoring flyer mattered. Humiliating. Useful. He let the feeling pass without giving it command. Then he separated the cash into folded paper envelopes. Food. Training. Books/copies. Clothes/grooming. Reserve. The reserve envelope looked thin enough to offend him. He filled it anyway. That evening, he did not go to Vesuvio. His body needed care, and the day had already produced enough attention. He stretched, read until focus began failing, and set the notebook beside the money.